welcome to the Love Your Career podcast.
Thank you.
So happy to have you here. Firstly, thank you so much for joining me. You have led, created and driven fantastic brands like One Rebel, Tribe, BX Fitness and obviously now Lift Brands. You are also an industry leader and a creative force that many of us, including myself, look up to. Today we get to hear your story and stories to help the people in this room, independent gym owners, and the wider Love Your Career audience of individuals and decision makers to learn more about recruitment and development and moving their career forward. So, for now, Kevin Yates, welcome to Love Your Career podcast. We'll start with the first question we always start with. Have you loved your career so far?
It's been an awesome. I've had ups and downs, as we all have, and we've all just come out of that crazy time which we're not allowed to talk about anymore. But it's been it's such a wonderful industry, and what a great place to work, and friends, and all my friends are in this world now, and I've been here 27, 28 years, and opening clubs and helping people open their clubs and building businesses, and it's been epic, and some lifelong friends, and it's just a spectacular industry to be part of.
Amazing. I touched on obviously some of the brands you've been associated with and founded and led. Would you mind telling us about your career so far? Talk us through that journey so far.
Yeah, I mean, if you take my first venture was, I was probably 30 years old, something like that. We opened our first club, myself and a guy called Dan Summerson, who's at Everlast now as their managing director. And we opened a small gym in a high street. We bought the building, we remortgaged our houses, we took a bit of cash out, and a friend of ours who's in the audience today helped us get there as well, and he was super kind and helped us make that work. And we it was a fun journey. We painted it all ourselves, we begged, borrowed, did everything we could to get it open, and yeah, it was that was our first journey, and just an adventure. Every club opening, everything you do is a restart.
I'm sure lots of people in the room can empathise with those early days of how crazy it is and doing everything yourself. What happened after that?
Well, besides on the opening day we got robbed and they stole the boiler and left the water on and flooded the gym and that kind of stuff.
Perfect start.
Perfect start. So we've got some great stories there. We set up a tent in the gym whilst a friend of ours, Graham, helped us, with the delivery of our equipment. So we didn't get re-burgled because we'd put a new boiler in. Okay. We didn't mind taking the boiler. We minded they left the water on. That was the problem. And and we opened another gym after that, a big 15,000 square foot club, which we've now sold that to the Everlast Group. And that was our first journey and into opening our gyms as a young kid, and all the pitfalls and the worries and the financial issues and the members. Yeah, we've been there and we've done it all.
And going from there to then managing, opening and leading major multi-site operations.
Yeah.
How do those early experiences help with that now? And is it a continual learning curve, or do you think
I think the difficult thing is always capital. You want to be capital. You want to be capitalized to be able to develop your brand and grow. And in the early days, you just never capitalized enough. Whatever you need 10 times more. I mean, so you think you need £1, you need 10. And we were always in a situation where we were always chasing capital and raising money. And you see that even now with some brands, they're constantly raising cash. And you're trying to keep your overheads lower than your income, all that kind of stuff. But at the same time, you want to grow, you want to develop the brand. And you've got these aspirations and dreams, and no one will give you the deals that you want because you're a single site or you're not developing quick enough. So you're always going to find it hard, and it's a tough journey to get your second one, and it's even tougher to get your third. But it's more harder, I always believe, just getting started. You know, as you get going and you start moving, and so people in the audience who've got one club, it's a difficult process to manage that one facility. It's hard to get going. It's hard to raise finance. It's hard to manage that and balance the books of being at home, and at the same time being able to pay yourself and look after yourself. Because if you take Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you know, you want to feel safe, you want to feel secure, and trust me, as an entrepreneur, you don't get the first foundation, which is very difficult, because if you don't get that, you make bad decisions and you get into a bit of a doom loop.
Thank you. That's really open and authentic, and I think a lot of lessons in there already. But to take that one step further, two areas I want to follow up on. First is the finance side of it. You mentioned about how hard it is to do that. Do you have any, for someone maybe who does have that one club or maybe two, any advice or guidance about some good decision making they can do to help them raise more finance to expand if that's what they want to do?
Look, finance is getting more difficult. It's expensive now. You know, we've just, you know, from Snap, from our Lift Brands position, we've just done a deal with HSBC, and you know, they're giving us 60% funding on any new builds and things that we're doing right now. You know, and I'm not just saying this because I'm coming from Snap and I'm coming from franchising, but what I can say to people is, genuinely, you don't have to do it yourself. And I really mean this from the bottom of my heart. If I was doing it again, I wouldn't do it myself. I would definitely just choose a franchise partner. And I would do it because all the tools are there. Everything's in place. You know, the teams, the support, the network, the websites, the name, the trademarks, all these little things that you've got to do yourself that cost money, that make you no money at the beginning, you've got to do. And so being able to really work with these brands, and whether it's Snap or any other brand, is a sensible way to go. I mean, we've got some phenomenal franchisees in our network. And what I've learned, even from those people, is they've got multiple brands. A lot of them are mostly in the food and beverage network, whether that's Domino's, Subways, KFCs, all these kind of stuff, Costas. And they take these brands and then build on the brand network that's already there. So there's huge opportunities to people to think about that, especially if you're a single site operator and wanting to transition and needing more help, you've run out of capital. All these opportunities are before you, and you could look at that as well.
Let's go back to you in the early part of your career. What was your best career decision when you were working your way up and you're building that knowledge, building that expertise, building those connections? What's the best career decision you made and why? You know,
I wouldn't say I made any, like, I've made more mistakes than I've made good career decisions.
Tell us about some of
those. But I think, you know, I think going into business for yourself is always a great thing, and trying things. I've tried many different businesses. We've failed a lot of businesses, and we've had successful in other business. But at the same time, you've got to create relationships. And you know, in our industry, it's very small, it's very tight-knit. So creating lots of relationships, going to those events, meeting people, getting to know everybody. Most people want to help you. That's the key thing. So if you ask, most people will help. And but you've got to build those networks.
Yeah, I could agree more. Since we started doing this, the podcast, the amount of people to none, it was every single person who said yes that we've asked to come and do it because they genuinely want to help. Yeah. It's not to provide a platform for themselves, it's to help the industry, and that's why we did in the first place. And most people do want to help. I completely agree. And if you are perhaps an independent gym owner looking for that step up, reach out to people who've done it before. People are receptive and open to helping you. A question we always ask on our podcast is obviously quite a famous one, but asking people's why. Why? What is your why? What keeps you progressing, moving forward, keeping moving forward?
I like helping people. I love building clubs. I genuinely just love building health clubs, networks, gyms, and my why is, you know, just leave a legacy of brands and helping people. You know, even now we've got a wonderful team in our Lift Brands team, and just helping and guiding and helping our franchise network get better, get more people active, get people more into health and fitness, which everybody should be doing in whatever capacity they can participate, and just moving. just getting the nation moving and having a healthy nation is definitely my why.
You mentioned one of the obstacles in your career so far, was particularly as an entrepreneur, was finance. What are the challenges you faced in your career so far, and where are the lessons from those?
I think when you can always look at the mistakes that were made. I mean, stuff that we did. We went, previously in my previous business, which we owned, we were really expanding internationally. So we'd gone into Russia, we'd moved into China, we'd moved all over Europe. And I didn't know enough about franchising at the time. We were still learning on the job and everything else. And franchising is a great way to move forward without personal capitalization, and you can really help people. So I think one of my learnings there would, if you went back, you'd probably do a much more. You'd have gone earlier on franchising network. What does that look like? How can we create them kinds of changes? But the problem is with our industry, which is not a problem. It's a great thing. Pre and post COVID, it's a different business. What did our industry look like pre-COVID? What's it look like on a post-COVID era? And it's a totally different world, and the economics are different. The requirements of the market are different. The people what they're asking for is now moving. The trends, and also we've now got a new generation that are 5 years older. So they've moved from end of 2020. We're into coming up to 2025. Generations of new members are asking for different things. They're more savvy, they're more understanding, they're more digital based, so there's a lot more opportunity.
I'm still interested in staying on the early part of your career to help understand what shaped you and guided you. What people have had the biggest influence on your career and why? And I've asked this question, I think it's really important that people can understand some of the behaviours that really stay with people and last and shape people.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people. I mean, I wouldn't say there's just one. We were just talking about an old CEO that we were privy to. I've learned a lot of bad people that I think are bad, or bad leaders, as I have from good leaders. But, we had a guy that came into Fitness First once called Mike Metcalf, probably one of the greatest CEOs I've ever worked with. And even now, I'm still learning as a CEO myself from, we've got a wonderful CEO called Ty Menzes, who's our global CEO. I'm learning stuff off him, learning different ways of being, I'm a very fiery red type of person, so learning new ideas. But, you learn stuff off everyone. I've had, great MDs who had a lot of, were very humble, that really worked well. I had good leaders like a guy called Mark Botha, who was a brilliant leader, really led us well and really gave us accountability, taught a lot about accountability. And then, I'm not going to name the bad ones, but the ones who I see as that, where you learn what not to do. It's not how I want to be perceived or be seen in that way. But I would say if there was one pinnacle, I would probably say Mike Metcalf was one who I really learnt a lot of.
Yeah, I think it's important to learn from the bad leaders as well as the good ones, who help to shape you as a person. I've certainly had my fair share as well, and I think it's really important that you take those lessons, like the good times and bad times when you run the business. Often the bad times, however painful they are at the time, you look back and go, that was a huge part of our journey. We've certainly been through that with Love. You learned so much in that time.
Well, you do. I mean, I had and people might know Alan Fisher from Holmes Place. I mean, he was an investor in my previous business, and he's just the most kindest, gentlest soul. And multiple businesses as an owner, as a founder. He would sit with you, and he's very calming. And when things went bad, he'd be able to articulate that really well. And so you learn from people like that so well, and you just think that's how I want to be as you're growing up.
Exactly the question I was going to ask you. Have you found those traits went into your leadership style? Is that how you like to lead?
Of course. I'm so much different. I was the worst, probably 5-6 years ago. It's difficult because when you've got your own company, you're a different person. You're just driving it in a certain way. You're driving the modality. You want to move into different realms. You're chasing the wrong things. And I'd say I'm a lot calmer now. Gary's here, one of our directors. He'd probably might tell you different, but
I'm looking at him right now. He's got his thumbs up. That's fine.
We talk a lot about learning on Love Your Career podcast, where lessons come from. Obviously, they come from people primarily, but they can also come from other areas like books, podcasts, and things like that. Is there any books or any education piece that you would recommend that have helped shape you as a leader, or as a business leader, or creative force, or anything like that? What's helped shape you?
Yeah, it's good. I mean, look, I'm constantly reading and understanding. I mean, back in the day, we did a lot about good to great. So it was all about good to great, built to last, all this kind of stuff. And, we really spend a lot of education time and study time on that as well. So that was one of my early foundings, and the usual, the same, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, all this kind of stuff. But now there's a little bit different, and there's a lot of great books and leadership books out there, and some are pretty much the same and all this kind of stuff. But I like the stuff like Outliers, which have got more data in there, to tipping points and all this kind of thing. But even now, you've got Elaine Jobson putting her book out, she's sending me a copy, signed copy. It'd be fun to read that as well. And so I just leave as much as I can. I read, I listen to podcasts and like yourselves, and drive a little bit. So I like to listen to quite a few audiobooks and stuff while I'm driving.
Wholeheartedly agree about Good to Great and all the Jim Collins work. I discovered that way too late. You said you discovered it earlier, I discovered it way too late. But it's foundational within our business now.
It's definitely. It's like, doom loops, built, all that kind of stuff, and you get into inflection points and everything, yeah.
Okay. Let's come back to some advice that some people in the room may really, really benefit from, as well as all the great advice that come from your career more directly. You talked earlier about growing a brand earlier. I obviously have a question around that as well, but what advice would you give to maybe an independent gym owner for growing their brand? Because you're very known for brand and growing and creating something really special. What advice would you give to maybe an independent gym owner?
Yeah, and look, as an independent gym owner, it's, and you're on your own, and you're building a brand, and this is horrible to say, but you've got to push as much bullshit out as you can. And to get the brand name out and a visualization, but you've got to position yourself to the right persona, because you're on your own. So, and I talk to all my teams as you're growing about white noise. We talk about that in Lift Brands now. We've got to get as much white noise out, just background noise, white noise about the brand, all the stuff you're doing, everything you're doing for your community. If you can get your brand into the community, that'll start to move itself. And your local papers, you don't need national, because you're in a local business. You've got a demographic that's probably going to be 5-mile radius, and you've just got to push that message within that demographic. That's it. And I remember back in the day, I wrote probably 1,000 letters to all the newspapers, and we were sending out every week, article, and nobody would print anything. But then one day, Women's Health put it in. Then it was in the Financial Times, because I promise you, a lot of press are lazy. They've got a spot available. They see it come through, and then suddenly we got in there, best workout club in the world, and it's in the Financial Times. Then suddenly it's on the online. Then it was in the Sun, and then suddenly it starts to get that movement. We've not done anything. I mean, we just wrote that we are the best workout in the world, all that stuff. So you just got to get as much white noise out about your brand, your people, the community, and make sure your face is not on there, because it's not about you. It's about the brand itself. And then it's positioning, where's my noise going to? Who am I talking to? What's my audience that I'm speaking to? But keep that going, invite your press down, your local press, give them free memberships, give it to if you've got if you're in Sheffield and you've got the Sheffield Star, give the editor and his wife and his family free sessions, get them in and let them talk about all the fun engagement things you're doing for the local community.
So thank you for all of that, but the underlying thing is that consistency and sustaining, so the messaging is consistent.
Running your own business is perseverance. It's tough, and if you're not on it every single day and pushing it out, then it's going to go backwards. You've got to persevere. It's hard, and that's why with our franchise businesses and our individual franchise owners, we've done this. We know how they feel. We can empathize with the the financial strains, the issues, funding, any capital requirements, everything. We've been through it all. We get it, and that's why we're there to really help drive their economic engine.
When you're recruiting now, I guess ideally or historically, how important, you mentioned about the story earlier, how important is it to create the right narrative for your business to make it an attractive proposition to attract and then long term to retain the talent? How important is that narrative piece?
Yeah, I mean, Maddie's doing some awesome recruiting for us as well. At the moment, we've just pushed out a few more people that we're looking for. We're trying to. It's interesting. I mean, even today, I put a message out to my team. Let's do a paragraph. What's the secret sauce of our business? What do we want it to feel like? And it's great, all the feedback you start getting back from the team. I think what they tell you is we're trying to run a kind company. I see that throughout the whole of Lift Brands. It's a very kind business. And we want to instill that within our teams, that we're trying to help each other. No one comes to work to do a bad day's work. Everybody wants to do a great job. We're just trying to give you the space and the tools to be successful and the tools to be able to do that. And I think, if in your own business everybody's working to those kind of goals, then, you should have a successful team.
I completely agree. Thank you for the kind words about Maddie as well. Once you've once you've decided you're recruiting and how that narrative works, we feel it's a really important thing when someone's interviewing for a process. That candidate journey through the process is really important. Would you agree that's important? And what elements are important in that?
From when you bring somebody on board?
Yeah, so once they go into the process of going, right, I'm now in the sphere of interviewing for Snap Fitness, that communication piece, that journey when they're with you, how important is communication and feedback?
I mean, look, from the whole recruitment program is so important to the, we've all been to that new job when you turn up and no one knows you're coming, and you've got no laptop or you've got no phone or whatever. It's important to us that when you turn up, everything matters. I talk to the teams about everything matters. They turn up, everybody gets out of the desk, says hello. We break. We have a coffee morning with them. You get to your desk set up. You got your laptop. You got your phone. It's not a crappy old laptop with stickers on it that's been handed down from somebody that's left. It's like you feel like you care. You've given them the right, and even if you've had to have it reconditioned or whatever, but you've got a laptop. You've got all your packages. You've got everything there. I give them a signed book, which we're using certain books at the moment, different ones that we
do the same thing.
We're talking about, and so I'll give them a sign, welcome to the team, and then they go through that process of feeling part of the family, not just sitting at the desk and think, okay, it's the first day, no one spoke to me, and I've got to wait for my senior or line manager to come in. You just got to integrate people, and it doesn't matter whether that's a big company, small company, or whether it's just a single site. You're on your own. You should be absolutely taking them on a journey in that first week, and then they're integrated. They feel part of the network and part of the family.
I did a talk recently at Elevate where we talked about the perennial people problem. Everyone likes alliteration, don't they? But the perennial people problem. When people talk about the people problem, they often focus on how hard it is to attract and interview people, and are they doing that better? What I think people don't focus enough on is the retention piece and how you keep people long term. From your career so far, what are some of the key things people can do to help them with that, to help them retain great talent in their business long term?
I think it's understanding your role in the company. I mean, there was a great one with Tim Cook the other week. He was talking. They said, "What's your job?" And he said, "People. I manage people. That's it." And it's pretty much, if you take that philosophy, depending if you're your own CEO or if you're running your own club, you're pretty much managing people. And if you manage your people in a really great way, the jobs will get done. But if you're a micromanager, and if you're a person that wants to do it all yourself, you might as well not have any of your team. So pretty much most people get to roles, senior roles, and actually don't know how to do it. And it's not their fault. I mean, they got, Rishi Sunak. I mean, he was a great CFO, maybe not the best CEO. and I actually am a conservative, by the way. But the point would be is he's not been great in that role because he's maybe not visualized himself really well. So that's okay. But it's like making sure that you're in the right role for that leadership and you're able to manage people in the right way. But I don't think there's enough people management skills going off with how to lead.
I think you're absolutely right. Question we'd like to ask people, we've spoken a lot about the help for business owners particularly. Let's do a little bit just for people maybe who are in the industry who really relish your advice. What advice would you give to people maybe looking to develop their career internally? So they don't want to go anywhere, but they want to progress internally. What sort of things should they be doing to help them with that?
It's everybody wants to progress, don't they? Because you want to progress because normally you get an extra bit of salary or you get an extra bit of something. But do you really want that? So the question is, what do you really want? Is it you want to manage people? If you want to look after people? Do you want your own club? I think some people just go on the wrong journey due to the fact that they're looking for the wrong things. Different types of financial security based on, either thinking that they need that CEO role or they need whatever role that is within their organization. So, and sometimes you were happiest in them other roles. You were really loved being a product director or a product manager or something like that because that's what you're really, really passionate about. I think a lot of people need to take that inward reflection, which I think they've done after COVID period. I think people have done that now and said, I don't really need to do that. I want to do less. I want more family time. I want to really focus on people. And I think you can see that happening in the market as well, whereas, we are being a bit more receptive and understanding of people's needs. And especially when you look at maybe policies and procedures that you're putting in place, we actually are thinking as business, well, we definitely are, of how that would affect our people and their home lives and how they feel to manage their own day-to-day lives.
Do you mind me asking how that's kind of mainly manifested? In what way is that coming through to you as a leadership team of what you may need to adapt to?
I mean, you've got to adapt to the market conditions right now, which are not everybody wants to come back for 5 days a week and stuff like this. So how do you deal with that from a culture position? And you're trying to keep culture and then you've got to define what is culture and what does it really mean to the team. And if they're only in 1 day or 2 days or 3 days, how do you make that exciting? And it's not just about going to the pub and having a drink all together. That doesn't breed culture. Not everybody wants to do that. So you've got to really understand your team and get to know them and understand what they really want, and hopefully get to know their, not personal lives in that sense, but really get to know what their values are and what their why is. Why am I here? And if you get to know that, you can really start to guide and help, develop, training, support, and make them better humans.
Just a few questions around how you kind of prepare interviews, prepare for interviews, etc. But then I'll come round to do a few final questions before throwing out to the audience. But in terms of, for you personally, when you're interviewing people, so you're the interviewer, what are some of the things that you do to get ready? How do you prepare for an interview?
So pretty much it's funny because Sarah, who heads up our marketing and experience, said I was the worst interviewer she's ever sat with. And I pretty much ask off-the-wall question. I ask, tell me about your last book you read. I want to know, tell me about the last adventure you were on. I want to know about you. I don't want to know whether you've got the CV to do the job. I actually want to get to know you as a person. What are your views of the world? How do you actually spend your time, your adventures? What do you read? What do you listen to? And try to get to understand you as a person and how you are with people.
Nice. I was going to say, what's your go-to question? Is it, what was the last book? Or do you not really have one?
I would normally what did you read last? And
nice.
I've had people say, I don't read. Okay, what podcast do you listen to? I don't listen to any. Okay, what do you do? Okay, I love gaming. I love this. Okay, so you've got to get online gaming. Yeah, I do this. And to find out they're doing you could be doing anything, but you've got to get to understand them. And I think that's more important with an interview.
making them feel comfortable so they can open up and reveal the real themselves.
Yeah, because I mean, interviews, you can tell you anything. I mean, they can sit down and say, yeah, well, I'm this kind of person, and I'm empathetic, and I'm this, and I do this. You know, show me. I mean, it's difficult because you're in an interview.
I promised to listen to your last answer when I asked this question, but what do you look for in a CV? Do you go into the CV? Is there particular things that you look for?
I pretty much wouldn't go in depth into the CV and itself. I mean, if we've got to the final stages, and I would assume my team have already done as much of the prepping as possible.
You're more about the culture fit and how it fits into the wider team.
Yeah, exactly. You know, is that person, I like the color profile systems, red, blue, yellow, greens, and so I really use that in my understanding and visualization of the individual. I've got to take a quick snapshot, but I try and get that from the quick answers that I'll be getting back as well.
Abby's a big fan of the colour thing, so I need to get into understand that more, because he explains I think I'm a red, and when I catch him on his other colour days, it's not a good thing.
I don't feel like you're a red. I feel like there's more yellow or red.
I think you should ask Abby. So in terms of, I've had different responses to this from lots and lots of different great leaders, but in terms of whether the validity of luck itself is a thing. But have you had any luck along the way? Do you see luck as a thing, or any lucky events that you look back on and go, that was a bit of a lucky thing?
Harder you work, luckier you get. I mean, that's how I'd see it, you know. So you work hard, you get lucky. I'd rather be lucky, that's for sure. And Alan Fisher used to say that all the time to me. I'd rather be lucky. So definitely.
Amazing. You've been in boardrooms, you work with some fantastic brands, you lead and collect great people along the way. One question I love to ask in this is, when I'm with people like that, is understanding what they believe are common traits of great people that they've been in and around in the sectors they've worked in, businesses they've worked in. Are there common traits you believe of great people, either in our sector or other sectors, that are great leaders?
Yeah, I think, I think great diversity of thinking. When you sat there and you're creating problems. Most of the time, you're trying to fix a problem and you may even create more problems. And just having the bandwidth to think about things in a different way is, and you can sit there and go, oh my God, I didn't even think about that. What a great idea. But usually, when you look at people who do that, they're pretty much an entrepreneur in their mindset. That you start to go, okay, this is a better way. Have you thought about this? We could do this. Or we could create this deal by doing X, Y, and Z. So I love those kind of conversations in meeting rooms and listening to that kind of visionary thought process. You need other people like your CFO to bring you back in line and say, it's X, Y, and Z. But I think that you see that with the real entrepreneurs and visionaries. And not everybody's an entrepreneur. That's the other thing. People want to be. It's a big thing on social media now, be your own entrepreneur. Not everybody's got they've not got the persistence and the strength to take it through.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Last couple of questions, if I may, before I throw it to the audience. What advice would you give, if you could, to your 21-year-old self? With what you know now, what advice would you give to that young man?
Invest in Bitcoin. But
well, I wish I did that as well.
Wish I'd done that. I don't know. I mean, I've pretty much gone on a journey I'm happy with. I haven't I've gone on a great journey. Done a lot of learning. Of course, you can always turn around and say, I wish I'd not done that. I wish I'd not done that. But that brings you to where you are today. And I'm in the greatest job. I love where I am. I love what I'm doing. I love the people I'm with.
Love that.
It's I'm got the lucky gene.
Love that as well. We always ask our guests if there's anybody they would nominate who they think would make a major guest, who've got a great story that people would learn from on the Love Your Career podcast. Is there anybody you'd recommend as a future guest?
Yeah, I mean, I think you've had Ty on here already.
Yeah, Ty's done it. Yeah.
I'd probably get Dan Summerson from Everlast as well. I think he's had a great story. And I'd probably like Alan Peacock.
Okay.
I think his story's been phenomenal as well. So
amazing. Thank you so much for your time. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. Before we start to wrap up, are there any questions that anyone would like to ask Kevin that are currently watching?
Graham.
Cool. Lawrence, you asked my question I was going to ask, so I've changed it in terms of what would your 21-year-old self know. But I think, given your career, Kev, looking into the future, and no one's got the answers to this, but what is your leadership vision for the future?
Kevin, so just for the purpose of the podcast, the question, so that they can hear it as well, is what's your leadership vision for the future?
And are we talking about how the world's going to change or people?
As you see it right now, as a leader of a big organisation, how are you going to take the people forwards as a leader in your role?
I think what I'm trying to do right now is more accountability. So give more power back to the people, let them make the choices. And I see my role to guide and help and just advise. You want them to really be accountable for their own business, and we've got a lot of clubs in a lot of countries, and I think you can't manage all that. It'd be crazy to think that way. So by having a wonderful team around you that support me as well, I need support and I need their guidance on stuff. And at the same time, giving them the ability to make decisions and get on with it. I hope that my team would say that that's what I do. I let them move forward and make choices, and pretty much I see myself as a guide there. But I also, one of the things that I'm working on and want to work on as we're moving forward is more self-understanding and development, which is not just about red, blue, greens and stuff, but really understanding themselves, why they're doing certain things, why they act in a certain way. As we know that there's a huge wave of anxiety and things that are going in the market right now, and things at home and pressures that came after being from lockdowns and stuff. So I think there's some work that I want to do to really give the teams more headspace and understanding of themselves so they can learn to self-develop as well and become better humans. And they'll be able to pass that on as well.
Any other questions from anybody else? Cool. Thank you very much. That was honestly, thank you so much for the candor and how authentic you were and answer the question. I think there's so much content in there that anyone who runs an independent gym will gain from. People who are working in our sector, or maybe decision maker, to how they can go about interviewing better, and how to recruit and retain the staff better, will learn something from. And crucially, people who maybe work in the sector can heard from someone who's built a fantastic career of how they can move forward. So thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Thank you.